Welcome to UpWell The Podcast. I'm Sarah, and this is my beautiful co-host, Katie. As fellow female entrepreneurs turned friends and now business partners, we are so happy you're here.
With every episode, it is our sole purpose to share authentic conversations to inspire your personal level up. Take our curiosity, add your best intentions, and flow with us in the UpWell.
Hey everybody, welcome back to UpWell The Podcast. I'm Sarah, this is Katie. We have another fun episode today. We are talking hot and cold therapies because it's a very buzzworthy topic right now. I think it's kind of taken the internet by storm. There's a lot of different thoughts about cold exposure and using heat for a bunch of different benefits. So we're gonna discuss, dissect, and chat about our own personal experiences with those today. Really quick disclaimer though, before we roll into the episode, we are not medical professionals, we are not doctors, so this is purely our personal experience with hormetic stressors, with hot and cold therapy, ways we utilize them in our own lives, and just the benefits we've seen ourselves. So just full disclosure.
Absolutely.
All right, let's jump right in. I wanna talk about my favorite thing, which is obviously being warm. Katie, we all know,
is cold. I prefer the cold.
I think she's nuts, but we are going to talk about the benefits of both because I actually have been inspired by you. And since our, what episode was that? Episode 3, I think, when we talked about
Beat the seasonal blues.
Yes, seasonal depression and seasonal blues, and just the benefits, the mental health benefits of cold exposure. I actually have incorporated cold showers almost every day since then. You'd be really proud of me.
Good.
And I've seen a lot of difference. So
Yeah,
I can't wait to talk about it. I just feel less stressed going into my day. And it's so funny because I'll preface this episode by saying hormetic stressors are intentional stressors. So it's things that you do intentionally to create internal stress or create a stressful environment, but it helps build resilience, right? It helps make you stronger after the fact. So different hormetic stressors too, outside of cold and hot, could be like fasting or intermittent fasting. Exercise is a hormetic stressor, some sort of tension you're putting on your body or on that situation.
And you're doing it in a mindful manner.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's a mindful stressor that you're putting on your body in the hopes of it improving your body.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I have noticed a calming effect, very much so. It's not in the shower, you guys. In the shower, it is anything but. It's very, you're trying to catch your breath. It can be difficult. It's a little bit, you're checking the clock, how many seconds has it been? Am I done yet? But you do get acclimated to it. So the longer you're in there, I'm not saying stay in there forever, but that 2-minute mark, once you hit that, you're like, okay, I think I can make it 30 seconds longer, or 10 more seconds. And then you just kind of build on that. But yeah, I have definitely seen a more calm start to my day, which is really, really great for anybody else that struggles with waking up kind of anxious. So,
and we'll get it more into what is actually happening in your body during that cold exposure, because it is a hormone response that's happening. Different hormones are being released and then are being slow released on a delayed release over time. The biggest one being dopamine, which I think most people nowadays know what dopamine is, and they understand what that it's a feel-good drug in your body. It's a natural feel-good drug. And then how our dopamine response is very short-circuited lately with the stimulation that we're constantly getting.
Yes.
So the one thing with cold exposure is actually you're delaying. It's a slow releasing dopamine response, which ultimately gives you that feel-good feeling longer without having to get the hit of it all the time.
Yeah, I love that because that is very, and you hear about it now all the time, especially with social media and checking your phone. They've done studies showing that people will check their phone when they just checked it moments before, just for that quick hit of dopamine, just for that quick feel good hormone pump. And I don't think people necessarily connect all the dots when it comes to their actions being so habitual because it's an actual physiological response in their brain. So
yeah, absolutely. So now you are a fan of the heat.
I am.
You are a fan of the heat. So there are a few different ways that you can go about getting your heat exposure. So the biggest one for me that I enjoy is actually a sauna, an infrared sauna. So explain a little bit about what happens during the heating up process of the body. I think that that's a good, maybe a good way to segue into the heat side of things.
Yeah, and I think not vice versa, but a little different than cold exposure. It's so correlated with mental health and anxiety or anxiety reduction, I should say. Well, heat, most people correlate with physical. Mm-hmm. It's very relaxing, usually rejuvenating, because it does cause your muscles to relax. It can be a great way to relieve pain, mm-hmm. or post-workout. It's a great way to relieve tension or stress. You as a massage therapist, mm-hmm. probably know very deeply, very much so, the benefits of heat exposure, whether that's directly, like a heating pad, mm-hmm. placement, or mm-hmm. even, like you said, a sauna or a hot bath, something like mm-hmm. that. So definitely beneficial for muscle tension and just an overall, relaxation of muscles. Mm-hmm.
And a relaxation of the body. It also does have a healing effect on your parasympathetic system, which is your rest and digest. The body warming up a little bit. Again, since you're relaxing the muscles as a whole, it's also relaxing that parasympathetic system, which can then in turn allow you to get into a sleep, or to just kind of get into a different brainwave state, which is super healthy. Yeah. Because we're so often stuck in beta brainwaves that being able to drop into your alpha or your theta brainwaves is a good just healthy cycle to get through, so that we're not constantly stuck in one turned on hyper focused frame of mind. So yeah. heat can help with that, to just kind of relax the body. It's interesting though, because cold actually can do the same thing. Yes. Which most people don't think of, because they think of that initial shock with the cold.
I did. I know I did.
The initial shock with the cold can be the biggest deterrent, I think, to most people for, trying to do the cold therapy. But I think once you're in it, the mindset of just having the thought that this doesn't last forever. This doesn't last forever. And it's, it's a temporary discomfort for a long-term gain. And so if you can switch your thinking on that it's short-term discomfort for long-term gain, a lot of changes can happen in the body. Yeah.
And I think that can actually be connected to heat therapy too, because mm-hmm. some people are deterred from doing mm-hmm. that, because it is a little bit uncomfortable to sit in a pool of your own sweat. Mm-hmm. It's hot. It can feel
sticky.
I know. See, our initial reactions to hot and cold, so funny. It's gotta be because I'm a summer baby and you're a winter baby. Yeah, I wonder if that's why.
Must be.
Yeah. So another reason I use hot therapy though, and I do want to talk a little bit more about this deeply with you because of what you do for your line of work, but it's such a good detoxifier for your body. It helps your liver and your lymph system detoxify. So when I use the word detoxifier, when you hear that, a lot of people think like detox cleanses mm-hmm. and juices and gut health and things like that, but it's also your lymphatic system. So thinking about all that your liver takes on and is trying to clean up for us constantly, whether that is what we eat and drink, what we breathe, the things we're putting on our skin, all the chemicals that we clean our house with, all of those things your body is constantly trying to detoxify from. So heat exposure or sweating is such a great way to kind of support that system mm-hmm. in your body.
Yeah. And from the massage therapy side of things, bringing heat into the body, like you said, with the detoxification, it's the bringing of fresh blood to an area, especially an area that you might have tweaked, or it's sore, or it's whatever, you've hurt it in some way, shape, or form. Bringing heat to that area is actually one of the best things that you can do to it, because you're bringing fresh blood, and fresh blood is ultimately going to push out the stagnant fluid that is in that area that is causing the pain and causing the inflammation. Fresh blood is healing properties. It's going to bring in that, that cellular, from the cellular side, it's going to create, without getting super technical in terms of, kind of everything that happens there, but the fresh blood is the heal of, of the injured area or the sore area or, the tension area. It's bringing the blood and flushing out the stagnant crap that's just sitting in there, that you've from repetitive use or an injury or, just tension or stress. It's, fresh blood. And in order to get the fresh blood in there, you have to warm it up.
Yeah. And I definitely utilize hot therapy. So sauna or even hot bath, hot shower, things like that, because I am so active and my exercise routine is fairly challenging to my body. So it's definitely a great way to induce that healing side of exercise. Because I think that's overlooked a lot. People just want to push, but if you aren't allowing for that recovery, you're never really restoring, back to where your body wants to be. So.
Right. And the one thing that people don't realize too about cold therapy actually is it will warm up your body. The more you're able to adapt to the cold,
this is what I want to talk about.
The more you're able to adapt to the cold, the warmer you ultimately are. And what happens is your white fat, which is the icky fat, we'll call it, starts to turn into what's called your brown fat. Your brown fat is your metabolizer. It's the thermogenic source in your body that gets your metabolism pumping, and it's ultimately what warms up your body. So in order to get more brown fat in the body, you actually have to expose yourself to cold in order to increase that brown fat.
Yeah, so I want to talk about that because that's another positive that I've seen from incorporating a cold shower I don't necessarily do it every day, but every 2 to 3 days, I try to do a 2 to 3 minute cold shower to start my day. But I've noticed that my body fat percentage has gone down and my ability to maintain my own warmth has increased exponentially. I was always that person. My husband can attest to this. I'm cold. Where's the blanket? Buy me fuzzy socks for Christmas. It's like I was always that person that I needed the jacket, I need the hat, I need the gloves. And I've even struggled with Raynaud's. If you're not familiar with what that is, it can be really painful. It's I don't know the best way to describe it. It's a blood vessel circulation problem usually in your toes and your fingers. It can go a little bit further than that depending on the severity of your Raynaud's, but I've struggled with it in the past to the point where you lose feeling in your hands. It's painful. When the feeling does come back, you lose all color. They're completely discolored.
They turn blue.
Yeah,
usually.
Blue and white. Yeah,
color.
it's kind of terrifying. But since I've exposed myself to cold more frequently instead of avoiding it like the plague, like I used to, I can definitely tell that my internal fire is stoked because I can maintain my temperature, my internal temperature so much easier. I don't go from being hot to cold or, sweaty to chilly to freezing to shivering. It's so much more even keel now.
Right. And one thing I want to touch base on is something you've said a couple of times now is that you do about a 2-minute cold shower. And for anybody who is just starting off, 2 minutes is not necessary. I always suggest to my clients when I'm talking to them about cold therapy is to start with 15 seconds. Yeah. Literally 15 seconds. And I can't really give anybody a gauge of like temperature because that is such a personal thing based on your body function and everything that goes on personally, individually in your body. But you need to get to a level of cold to where it's, oh, that's uncomfortable.
This is shocking. Yeah.
That's uncomfortable, but I can handle it knowing that, like I said earlier, it's not going to last forever. It's 15 seconds, 15 seconds, 15 seconds. I always suggest if you can every time you take a shower for the first week, start with 15 seconds. From there, increase it by 5 seconds or even 10 seconds if you can, or double it if you're feeling brave. And once you can get up to that 2-minute mark, that is a great thing. And then in terms of how much to do for an entire week, they have found, studies have shown that the sweet number is 11 minutes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's the 11-minute mark. Really, doing anything much more than that, there are no exponential greater benefits from it above the 11-minute mark. So if you in a collective whole in a 7-day period can get to 11 minutes of cold exposure. Now, I don't have a calculator in front of me because I would definitely need a calculator for this math equation, but in terms of the percentage of your life that is in a week, 11 minutes of your time in a week is nothing.
Yeah.
To ultimately have some extraordinary health benefits that come from the cold exposure.
Agreed. And I can definitely say I did start very small.
Mm-hmm.
I started with turning the water cold at the end of my shower
Mm-hmm.
for a few seconds and just breathing,
Mm-hmm.
just being present
Mm-hmm.
and reminding myself this is almost over. It's not going to it's not going to last that long. And now it's not that I jump out of bed every morning and look forward to getting in a cold shower, but it's like, it's become so habitual. And I know how wonderful, literally how amazing I feel post shower, post cold water exposure when I get out, and how less anxious and how less stressed I feel for the coming hours of my day, that it's 100% worth it. So it is something that I look forward to now. So funny, because a few episodes ago, I don't think I would have ever said that, but yeah, just having that knowing now that when I get out, I'm just going to feel amazing. It's definitely a motivator to continue.
And when you're in the shower, just a helpful tip, getting your whole body cold. And that means getting your head underneath, making sure it's the front and back of your body, making sure it's your hands, making sure it's
rotisserie.
Yes,
rotisserie in
exactly.
The shower.
That's what you need to do in order to truly get the benefits. Because you could just put it on your back, and that would be fine. But it's once you put it on your chest, your stomach, the
Your
front
face.
side of you, and your face. Those are your internal organs. That's the quickest way to get to your internal organs. And so it does have the shocking effect of it, but ultimately that's what you need. You need to be making the whole body cold in order to get the benefits of the cold therapy.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's kind of profound that we've already shared mental and physical benefits, but these hormetic stressors and so many others have been around for thousands of years. So many ancient civilizations have taken advantage of these because they knew inherently the benefits. They might not have done studies and had the science to back it, forever ago, but now we do. But looking through the years at all these peoples that have done it for ages and seen the benefits, so many of them started as, a spiritual practice too. And I think that's important to cover, because exposing yourself to something that is uncomfortable short term is such a grounding thing. It's such a way to connect your body to your spirit. And I don't think, going back to this fast-paced world that we live in, everything is immediate and in our faces. We don't take that time. We don't have that opportunity all the time to be in our bodies with our spirits. And I know that might sound a little woo-woo and a little bit out there to some people, but I can promise you that if you start mindfully practicing moments of your day like that, it's life-changing.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that. And it's a matter of humbling yourself in a way that allows you to, I don't know, to me that there's something about moments in time that make me feel small.
Yeah.
In a good way, not like somebody else making me feel small, that sort of thing, but a situation or an experience that might happen that makes you feel small in relation to the universe.
Yeah.
And that is such a spiritual thing, and brings such an awareness to you and who you are and your significance in this world, that a lot of us forget that aspect and what that can ultimately do for us, and how peaceful that can be to kind of have those moments in time.
Yeah, and I like that you said the word peaceful, because another benefit I find from hot and cold exposure, so whether that's sauna or hot bath or a quick ice cold shower or an ice bath, is the ability to not really think about anything else, because you're in slight discomfort and you're very in your body and in the moment. I think that's another mental and spiritual benefit, because that's your only focus. And I think we live each day pulled in so many different directions, right? Like, you're just thinking about what you have to cook for dinner and what kids you have to get where and what you have to do tomorrow and what you have to get done before bed. And it's like we are never allowed just to focus on one thing, especially that thing being ourselves or our body. So I think, to me, that's probably the number one benefit of these hormetic stressors of hot and cold, is just being.
Oh, I agree with you there. That is profound.
I know. And with that, she's done. I bow out.
She bows out. Oh goodness. So let's switch the tone a little bit and bounce back to heat for just a little bit, because I think we've touched on the cold pretty significantly. So other things with the heat. Now I am not a heat person. My experience with heat is going into an infrared sauna, laying out in the sun, which the sun is a whole nother animal and a whole nother topic for a different episode, with the whole vitamin D aspect of it. But in terms of the heat, from a spiritual level, or from a physical level too, aside from the detoxification, what are some of the benefits of heat therapy?
I really just think it really does go back to the relaxation and the detoxification. To me, those two kind of partner so well hand in hand, and they do become more of a spiritual thing, because it is a cleansing. You know, it's a cleansing of your physical body, but at the same time, it's that purification, right? And I think that's just an important thing. That's why people love showers too. Like it is a spiritual practice. It can be used as a spiritual practice. So it's funny you say that in terms of showers. Like after I've had a long day of clients, and let's say I've done 6 to 7 hours of hands-on time, I will get home and the first thing I say to my fiance is, I gotta take a shower. I gotta rinse the day off of me. I have to rinse the day off of me. And sometimes sometimes the whole thing is a hot shower, and other times it's a cool shower. Other times it's a mix of the two. It really kind of all depends on how the day went. And I think something that can be learned from that, at least from my experience, is depending on the day, also depends on the temperature of the water. Yeah.
And what I need, and having that innate understanding of yourself is something very powerful and very healing at the same time.
Well, and going back to, you were talking about the sun and having a whole episode on that. I think we could have a whole episode on water. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but water is just such an energetic thing. And even just knowing that we are 97% water. So why wouldn't we be some sort of, spiritually affected, or cleansed by water, aside from just washing the sweat or the dirt off your body? I mean, you can have a more profound experience with something that you're primarily made up of, if you can make that connection. So I think, again, going back to hot and cold, it just draws you more into the moment. So I think using the temperature, changing the temperature of the water can be something that could be impactful too. So.
Absolutely. I agree with you on that before, for sure.
I am a sauna person. I actually have a sauna. It's not an infrared sauna. It's just a dry heat sauna. And I try to utilize it probably 3 to 4 days a week. And again, it goes back to, like Katie said with her clients, I can't recommend how long, how frequently, that's always going to be very personal to you and what is best for your own health and what feels best to you. But that leads me to, I've been reading a lot about alternating therapies. I think that's what it's called. But essentially it's going from hot to cold, and the specific benefits that you could see from going back and forth between the two. So I know that you recommend this to your clients for localized things, for injury and things like that. So touch on the benefits or why you would recommend doing that.
So anytime you come in, or you tweak your back, you hurt your shoulder, anything like that, and it's an acute injury, so it's a new injury, I recommend hot and cold, cold and hot. 20 minutes cold, 20 minutes hot, 20 minutes cold, always ending in cold. So that way when the cold is done, your body warms up to its natural temperature. And ultimately what that does is cold will reduce inflammation. But you need the new blood, like I talked about earlier, the new blood to come into the area to bring, the fresh the healing powers of fresh blood to the area, but then the cold will pull away the inflammation. So that's why the alternating is good for a localized area. As for a total body, again, it's an immunity thing. It's a inflammation thing, a metabolism thing to do the hot and cold. It's the detox with the stoking the internal flame and changing your white fat to your brown fat.
Yeah, and going back to everything that we talked about through the duration of this episode, just utilizing both sets of benefits, right?
Absolutely.
So it's the science is emerging now about doing both back to back, and all the things that we just discussed that you could potentially, gain from going from hot to cold or vice versa, or back and forth a few times. So I think we covered the gamut today. We talked about so much, and we got to the bottom of the why for a lot of the reasoning behind choosing, to expose yourself to something uncomfortable, cold or hot. So I do want to share, in case anyone's looking for some more information, or they just want to know a little bit more about cold exposure or how to get started. I love Wim Hof. I'm a big fan. He has written a book. He also has an app called the Wim Hof Method, but he touches on breath work and, how to ease into doing cold therapy or cold plunges. So he's one of my favorites. Do you have anybody that you recommend we could learn a little bit more from?
I really like Brian McKenzie. He has a company called Shift Adapt. Again, it's hot and cold. He does talk about both, but he does, I think, do a little bit more with cold than hot. But he does do both. But he also does breath work as well, kind of like the Wim Hof method. He's another great resource with a boatload of knowledge and information.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we hope that this episode has been super beneficial to you guys and very helpful. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us, obviously. But hopefully this was a good baseline for anybody that listened in. And if you were curious about why you would jump into a freezing cold bathtub or why you would sit in a sauna for 40 minutes, hopefully you have a little insight. So cheers, friend. That was great.
Yeah, awesome. We want to thank everybody for joining us for another episode of UpWell The Podcast. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, or Facebook at UpWell The Podcast. You can find myself personally at barefoot.katie on Instagram, and Sarah is at Sarah Behrens. And until next time, we hope that this episode has inspired you to rise up, take action, to inspire yourself, others, and the world around you. Till next time, guys.
Bye.
See ya.